Chapter 1: Why Space is a Necessity, Not a Dream. Welcome. Look around you. Take a deep breath. Feel the firm ground beneath your feet. This is Earth, our home, our origin, the only place in the vast, incomprehensible cosmos where we know life exists. It is a marvelous planet, a blue and green jewel suspended beautifully in the void. Yet, the Earth, however robust and beautiful it may seem, is not infinite. And herein lies the seed of the most uncomfortable, yet most thrilling truth of our future. Leaving the nest is inevitable. This is not a romantic choice, nor is it merely a whim of ambitious billionaires. It is a law of physics, a fundamental principle of biology, and above all, an unbroken thread in human history, an ineluctable necessity for the long-term survival of our civilization. It is high time we stop viewing cosmic expansion as an optional adventure and start seeing it as the only viable insurance policy for the continuance of our species. Ever since our ancestors first stood upright on two legs in the savannah, the history of humankind has been an unending chronicle of expansion. It is the story of crossing the next river, climbing the next mountain, and traversing the next ocean. 40,000 years ago, we possessed no ships, only precarious rafts, but we still crossed open seas, eventually reaching Australia. Just a few centuries ago, the American continents and Antarctica remained unknown to us. Whenever we have encountered a formidable barrier, I repeat, whenever we have met a barrier, we have found an ingenious way to overcome it. This relentless drive is not greed, it is survival codified in our DNA. It is the evolutionary engine that propelled us from the cave to the very apex of the food chain. Today, that barrier is no longer a mighty ocean or an endless desert. It is the fragile atmospheric layer that envelops us, the protective bubble that keeps us alive, and the time has come for us to learn to breathe, live, and prosper far beyond its confines. Before we truly embark on this epic journey, settle in comfortably and adjust the volume. Join our crew by subscribing to thedeepspace.com so you don't miss our daily exploration of the cosmos. We are many, investigating together. Tell us in the comments, from which country are you watching, and what time is it now on your clock? The adventure truly begins now. The idea of traveling into space has, for a long time, been shrouded in a fog of fantasy. Silver rockets, heroic astronauts in bulky helmets, epic science fiction tales. It is entertaining and inspiring, but it far too greatly simplifies the core issue. The truth is, space is the only practical way to address the triple challenge we currently face: population, resources, and risk. Think about this deeply. We currently have more than 8 billion people, and that figure continues its upward trajectory. Every single person requires food, clean water, sustainable energy, and a place to live. Earth possesses finite resources and delicate ecological systems. We can and must become more efficient, we must recycle, and we must reduce our environmental impact with the utmost urgency. But these are short-term solutions that only buy us precious time. They are not permanent remedies for an organism, a civilization, that is, by its very nature, engineered to grow. If our global population were to double or triple, where precisely would we put our feet? From where would we extract the colossal amounts of lithium and copper required for the technology that drives modern life? The core problem of finitude is not just the lack of physical space or the dwindling supply of fresh water. It is, fundamentally, an energy and economic challenge. Our global civilization, since the foundational invention of agriculture, has been based on one simple concept: finding the next abundant source of energy. Wood, coal, oil, natural gas. Each leap forward has ignited a revolution that has fundamentally transformed the lives of billions. What is the logical next step when carbon-based energy is now threatening our climate and fossil fuels inevitably begin to run low? The sun, of course. But not the sun's energy filtered and diminished through our atmosphere. Rather, the sun in its purest, most intense form. In the vacuum of space, solar power is essentially unlimited. There are no clouds, no night, and the raw intensity is far greater than it is on the terrestrial surface. Space offers us an energy horizon that converts Earth from a slowly depleting closed system into an open system, connected to a cosmic energy spigot that for all practical purposes will never run dry. Developing this massive capacity is the qualitative leap our global economy absolutely requires to continue its progression without utterly destroying its cradle. Now, let us discuss the word that no one likes to hear, but which remains the most pragmatic, compelling reason for cosmic expansion: vulnerability. We are living in a beautiful, fragile fishbowl, and that fishbowl is constantly exposed to both external and internal dangers. What happens if an asteroid the size of a massive sports stadium, like those that have relentlessly struck our planet throughout its geological history and which ultimately wiped out the dinosaurs, were to head directly toward us? The dinosaurs were not capable of building a secure refuge on Mars. We are. The technology for asteroid deflection is within the realm of possibility, but only if we have the necessary infrastructure, the advanced technology, and, crucially, the redundancy to implement it effectively. What happens if a supervolcanic eruption, an event that occurs roughly once every 100,000 years, darkens the skies across the planet, triggering a volcanic winter that would utterly end global agriculture? And what about the existential risks that we ourselves are creating? A nuclear war that unleashes an apocalyptic nuclear winter, an uncontrollable global pandemic that decimates the population, or a catastrophic, irreversible climate tipping point. To have our entire species and civilization, all our remarkable achievements, all our music, our science, and our art, concentrated into a single basket, is a statistical act of utter madness. It is playing cosmic Russian roulette. The only way to truly mitigate the risk of extinction is dispersion, the creation of self-sufficient colonies that do not depend on the sole well-being of Earth. The law of nature is abundantly clear. That which does not expand contracts. Life that stagnates eventually dies. Life is pure movement. It is dispersion. It is adaptation and colonization. From a purely biological perspective, the colonization of other worlds is not merely an option. It is the inevitable culmination of our evolution as a species. It is the guaranteed way we ensure that, no matter what eventual catastrophe befalls our original fishbowl, the torch of human knowledge, the very spark of consciousness, will continue to burn brightly somewhere else in the universe. This is the true immortality we should seek, not that of an individual, but the lasting legacy of our entire intelligent species. This foundational biological and survival necessity is being powerfully driven by a new economic paradigm shift. The vision of space has transitioned from being solely a governmental mission, financed by taxpayers with no direct economic return, into a profitable commercial and industrial enterprise. This is no longer simply about planting a flag and taking a photograph. It is now about logistics, deep economics, sophisticated engineering, and yes, mining. Outer space is the next continent in the most literal and profound sense of the term. Think back to the 16th century, when European powers looked westward and saw not only unexplored lands, but also unlimited potential resources. gold, exotic spices, and new commercial trade routes. Today, we look upward and see something infinitely more valuable. Rare metals, such as platinum and iridium, within asteroids that are utterly crucial for modern technology, and frozen water ice on the Moon and Mars that can be converted into breathable oxygen and, critically, into high-performance rocket fuel. The development of space is not a drain on Earth's resources. It is the key to unlocking the terrestrial economy from its self-imposed physical limits. Imagine a future where the cost of energy plummets dramatically because we are efficiently harvesting it in orbit and beaming it wirelessly back to Earth. Imagine a future where heavy construction materials no longer have to be extracted at immense environmental cost from our planet, but are instead mined efficiently in the asteroid belt and processed in orbit, where the environmental impact is virtually zero. The underlying concept is nothing short of revolutionary. Instead of taking things from Earth, we take them from space and use them in space, or only send them back to Earth when they are extraordinarily valuable and almost impossible to find here. This vast economic horizon is what is now propelling private corporations, the genuine locomotives of this new space era. It is no longer just NASA that directs the game, but companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, driven by the unyielding logic of the market, which fully understand that the Moon and Mars are valuable assets, not just distant destinations. They are actively constructing spacecraft that are essentially sophisticated freight trucks, designed to be completely reusable, highly robust, and, most importantly, cheap to operate. This fundamental shift is what completely changes the necessity calculation. For human life to become truly multiplanetary, the cost of lifting a single pound of material off the Earth must utterly collapse, and this is achieved solely through total reusability. When SpaceX made rockets routinely reusable, they were not performing a marketing stunt. They were fundamentally rewriting the economic equation of access to space. A rocket that is used only once is comparable to a massive airliner that is discarded after a single passenger flight. This model is inherently unsustainable for the grand vision of human expansion. Total reusability and massively heavy-lift rockets, such as the Starship, are the clipper ships of the 21st century, the workhorses of the cosmos. They are specifically designed to carry hundreds of people and many dozens of tons of cargo to other worlds. They represent the necessary infrastructure for inevitability, reducing the cost of sending one person to orbit from hundreds of millions to possibly just a few $1,000,000. This is the difference between a single exploration trip and the establishment of an entirely new civilization. The vision of the future is not merely a handful of astronauts hopping on the Moon. It is a total energetic and economic expansion. It is the establishment of a solar economy that extends across the Moon, Mars, the asteroids, and far beyond. This expansion not only makes us exponentially safer as a species, but it also makes us dramatically richer, cleaner, and technologically more advanced. The development of advanced propulsion and closed-loop life support systems for the rigors of space will inevitably drive disruptive innovations that will transform life right here on Earth, just as the technologies from the Apollo program gave us everything from microchips to freeze-dried food. Space is the ultimate engine of innovation. So, the next time someone asks you why we spend considerable money on space when there are still pressing problems on Earth, give them this definitive answer and tell them to state it with conviction. It is not an expenditure. It is a crucial investment in the long-term resilience and prosperity of our entire species. It is an investment in clean energy, in vast new resources with zero terrestrial environmental impact, and in an insurance policy that guarantees that, even if the worst-case disaster strikes, the light of human civilization will not be extinguished. Space is not just for poets and dreamers, it is for pragmatists who fully understand the law of probabilities and the ineluctable logic of expansion. Earth is only the first chapter of our story, but the cosmos is where we will write the next 10,000. It is a necessity dictated by growth, by risk, and by the relentless evolutionary impulse of life to always move forward. Survival in a vast, indifferent, and often hostile universe requires that we stop being a single-planet civilization. We must become a multi-planetary species, period. This profound understanding transforms space from a simple hobby into an absolute obligation. And that obligation begins right here, right now, with the technologies we are already actively developing. We need to fully comprehend how our current launch vehicles, our orbital infrastructure, and the limits of our present capability function, because this is the solid foundation upon which we will construct empires beyond this world. Chapter 2. The Current. Starting point. What we have today. If Chapter 1 provided us with the why for expansion, then Chapter 2 must detail the how, and more importantly, the with what. We cannot hope to build a sustainable city on Mars with mere dreams and promises. We require tons of reliable steel, cutting-edge circuits, massive propellants, and above all else, a robust infrastructure that is functioning effectively today. The expansive future we have long imagined is no longer just a hypothetical concept. It is now a visible production line, a bustling spaceport in Florida, and a reusable rocket that lifts off, lands precisely, and is ready to fly again in a matter of hours. Forget the outdated textbooks. Access to space has definitively transitioned from being a miraculous, singular event to an affordable, routine logistical service, and this represents the most silent and potent revolution of our time. For many decades, space exploration was overwhelmingly dominated by large government agencies. NASA in the United States, Roscosmos in Russia, the ESA in Europe. These were the titans, the only entities capable of managing the inherent complexity and the astronomical cost of designing, constructing, and launching incredibly expensive, disposable rockets. Every single launch was treated as a national holiday, a heroic feat of engineering, and also a colossal bill of hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. But the fundamental disadvantage of this outdated model is its inherent unsustainability. It was the economic equivalent of using a heavily armored luxury taxi to drive to the local grocery store and then immediately throwing it in the garbage. This is not a criticism of the past era, as it was simply the only technology available at the time. However, that model has now been definitively surpassed. The massive difference between the historic Apollo program and the current Artemis program is not only the destination, the moon, but rather who puts the rockets in the sky and how they accomplish it. The true paradigm shift, the defining landmark of our current starting point, is the arrival of total reusability and the powerful emergence of private aerospace companies. Corporations such as SpaceX, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, and numerous others have injected fierce competition, unprecedented speed, and, most importantly, a relentless pursuit of economic efficiency into what was previously an expensive state monopoly. SpaceX, with its highly successful Falcon 9 rocket, conclusively demonstrated that a massive booster stage could return from orbital velocity and land with millimeter precision onto a tiny pad. This is not merely an impressive parlor trick. It is the logistical equivalent of inventing the internal combustion engine after centuries of dependence on horses. Suddenly, the marginal cost of a single launch plummets dramatically, transforming the cost from an insurmountable financial barrier into a manageable operational expense. This foundational change has created a gravitational highway where, before, there was only a difficult and prohibitively expensive mountain trail. Today, we no longer discuss mere rockets, but massive mass transport systems. The development of super heavy lift rockets, such as the Starship from SpaceX or the SLS from NASA, is the tangible, physical manifestation of our multiplanetary ambition. These vehicles are not simply designed to carry a few satellites. They are spacefaring ships engineered to transport 100 people and well over 100 tons of cargo to the deep reaches of space. Their sheer scale is both terrifying and immensely exciting. Starship, for example, is designed not only to be completely reusable, but also to be refueled in orbit. This capability represents a critical, unavoidable step. Imagine wanting to drive from Madrid all the way to Sydney, but your car only has enough fuel to reach Lisbon. Without the capacity for orbital refueling, we cannot efficiently reach Mars, nor can we carry the massive amounts of cargo necessary to establish a truly sustainable, permanent base. The ability to effectively construct space gas stations is an essential technology that we are actively mastering today, and it literally unlocks the entire solar system for large-scale commerce and sustained colonization. In addition to propulsion, the orbital infrastructure is undergoing a radical and much-needed transformation. The International Space Station, ISS, has served as an incredible, unique learning platform for more than 2 decades, but it is undoubtedly aging and reaching the end of its operational life. The immediate future lies in commercial space stations. Companies such as Axiom Space are planning to attach new modules to the ISS, which will eventually separate to form their own privately owned, fully commercial stations. These orbital hotels and industrial parks will further greatly reduce the cost of research, space tourism, and, crucially, in-space manufacturing. Manufacturing? Yes. The microgravity environment allows for the creation of innovative materials that are utterly impossible to make on Earth. Stronger metal alloys, higher purity optical fibers, and complex biological medicines. Low Earth orbit, LEO, is rapidly transforming into a high-technology industrial park, an economic first rung that financially supports the ambition to travel much farther afield. Satellites, too, have changed beyond recognition. They are no longer single, prohibitively expensive, and monolithic government spacecraft. Today, we are fully immersed in the era of mega-constellations. Think of Starlink, OneWeb, or Kuiper. Thousands of small, identical satellites are launched in rapid succession, creating a global mesh network for high-speed broadband internet. This has profound military and economic implications, but the most important one for expansion is connectivity. The day we establish a reliable base on the Moon or Mars, we cannot depend on simple, single-point communications with massive terrestrial antennas. We will require a resilient, ubiquitous network. Mega-constellations are successfully developing the core technology for mass production, rapid launch, and sophisticated fleet control of thousands of autonomous vehicles. This critical experience in managing distributed networks will be absolutely crucial when we eventually have to connect a permanent lunar base with an automated exploration rover on Mars, and in turn, with robotic asteroid miners. And we cannot afford to overlook the silent but pervasive revolution of robots and artificial intelligence. NASA's rovers, such as Curiosity and Perseverance, are astonishing examples of how robots can effectively serve as our eyes, our hands, and at times, our very brains on distant worlds. But the next generation of these machines will be vastly more autonomous. Additive manufacturing technology, or 3D printing, is being rigorously tested to construct large-scale structures on the Moon using local regolith, or lunar dirt. This means we will no longer be required to ship every single building block from Earth. We will only need to send the advanced 3D printer and the power source. The ability for robots to mine, refine, and construct using only local materials, a technology known as in situ resource utilization, ISRU, is the key distinction that separates a brief exploratory visit from genuine colonization. Today, we are actively testing ISRU technology in advanced laboratories and already on Mars, such as the MOXIE experiment, which successfully produces oxygen from Martian carbon dioxide. We are firmly in the testing phase, but this technology is the indispensable keystone that makes long-term expansion truly sustainable. Despite all this astonishing progress, our current starting point still possesses crucial limitations that we must honestly recognize. The most significant is the substantial gap between low Earth orbit, LEO, and the Moon. Moving from LEO to the Moon or Mars remains incredibly expensive and logistically complex. We need substantially more reliable power. The NASA SLS, while powerfully capable, is expensive to operate and is not yet fully reusable. The Starship, while promising total reusability, is still in its crucial development and testing phase. We also face a fundamental, long-term challenge with radiation. Outside the protective embrace of the Earth's powerful magnetosphere, astronauts are exposed to much higher, dangerous levels of cosmic radiation and solar particles. We urgently need to develop superior radiation shelters and effective shielding solutions for long-duration voyages, such as the many-month journeys required to reach Mars. While propulsion technology is advancing at a breathtaking pace, the essential technology for protecting human life still has significant obstacles to overcome. Finally, there is the ever-growing problem of space traffic. Low Earth orbit is rapidly becoming crowded with active satellites and, regrettably, with a great deal of accumulating space junk. Every single collision generates thousands of new, high-velocity projectiles, making the orbital environment progressively more dangerous. Controlling, mitigating, and cleaning up the orbital environment is a crucial responsibility of our current starting point. If we completely fill our front door with debris, all future expansion will become exponentially more difficult and hazardous. In summary, today we stand firmly on the threshold of a new era. We already possess the sophisticated trucks, reusable, super heavy lift rockets. We are actively building the gas stations, orbital refueling capability, and we have developed the basic foundational tools, ISRU, 3D printing. The era of romantic, abstract space exploration is over. The era of cosmic logistics has officially begun. But to truly reach our destination, multi-planetary self-sufficiency, we must leverage this powerful new infrastructure to take the very first and most important step outside of the nest, returning to the Moon. It is the ultimate test field, the grand laboratory, and the essential springboard toward the rest of the boundless solar system. We have firmly established the why, and we have clearly defined the with what. The next logical and critical step is to know precisely where we will place our first secure foot, and why that specific location, the Moon, is so absolutely vital to our future. Chapter 3. The first step. Returning to the Moon. If Earth serves as the foundation of our civilization, and low Earth orbit, LEO, is the established gateway, then the Moon is not merely a final destination, it is the essential springboard for the entirety of humanity's expansion. After decades of viewing it primarily as a historical trophy, we have now profoundly understood that our natural satellite is, in reality, the single most important strategic asset in the entire solar system for our future growth. The Apollo program was a spectacular exploration sprint. The Artemis program and its global partners represent a marathon of detailed engineering and critical logistics for sustainable colonization. It is time to cease asking whether we will return to the Moon, and instead begin asking how we will build a permanent civilization there. The Moon, situated only a relatively short 3-day journey away, is the perfect solution to three major cosmic problems: proximity, resources, and gravity. Its relative closeness allows us to rigorously test advanced propulsion systems, new radiation shielding methods, and sophisticated closed-loop life support systems without the years-long commitment that a mission to Mars demands. It serves as our training ground, our primary proving range, and our invaluable engineering laboratory. Should a critical system fail on the Moon, a rescue mission is feasible and timely. Should it fail on Mars, the outcome is almost certainly tragic. Therefore, the lunar base is the definitive stress test for everything we intend to build thereafter. But what is most exciting is the crucial realization that the Moon is not the dry, barren wasteland that old textbooks led us to believe. Today, thanks to groundbreaking missions like Chandrayaan and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, we know for a fact that the Moon conceals an invaluable treasure in its permanently shadowed polar regions: water ice. This pivotal discovery has completely rewritten the colonization manual. Water, in the vacuum of space, is the ultimate currency. It is not only absolutely vital for human survival, for drinking, for growing food, but it can also be separated through the process of electrolysis into its fundamental components: hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is used for breathing, of course, but the combination of hydrogen, fuel, and oxygen, oxidizer, creates the most powerful chemical rocket propellant known to exist. This essential fact transforms the Moon from a mere place to briefly visit into the interstellar gas station of the future. Imagine this scenario unfolding. A heavy-lift rocket, such as the Mammoth Starship, lifts off from Earth with a minimum fuel load, just enough to reach low Earth orbit, LEO, and then proceeds to a pre-established lunar base. Once there, it is fully refueled with lunar-produced propellant, which is vastly cheaper to manufacture than the fuel required to be hauled out of Earth's enormous gravity well. This fully fueled rocket can now launch a much greater payload, much farther, toward Mars or the asteroid belt. The Moon, with its surface gravity being only 1/6 that of Earth, naturally becomes the ideal spaceport for the entire solar system. It is dramatically easier, requiring significantly less energy, to launch deep space missions from the Moon than it is from Earth. This is the tangible meaning of expansion. The Moon is the single key that unlocks the entire solar system. The first major, overarching objective of this new era is the construction of the lunar outpost, known conceptually as the Artemis Base Camp. This will be far from a small, temporary tent like the one used during Apollo. It will be a fully modular settlement, specifically designed to house long-duration crews and, eventually, to blossom into a self-sustaining village. The initial stages of construction will focus squarely on power generation. We require small, modular fission power units, like kilopower reactors, and massive solar arrays, especially those capable of capturing the continuous sunlight on the rims of the polar craters, close to where the critical water ice is located. Power, above all else, is what truly fuels both science and life. The engineering of this permanent base will be a spectacular feat of human ingenuity. Instead of living within vulnerable, pressurized metallic modules exposed to cosmic radiation and destructive micrometeorites, the colonists will focus on constructing subsurface habitats, or those heavily covered with regolith. Regolith, the fine, dusty lunar soil, is an excellent protective shield. Robots, controlled remotely by the astronauts, or even by operators back on Earth, will begin piling this material over the habitable modules. Better yet, gigantic 3D printers will be utilized to construct dome structures directly out of melted regolith, creating highly robust and stable shelters. The lunar dust thus becomes our cosmic concrete. The next critical step is self-sufficiency. the rapid development of hydroponic agriculture and closed-loop life support systems. In these small, carefully balanced artificial ecosystems, air, water, and nutrients are constantly recycled. The engineering challenge lies in making these systems as closed as possible, minimizing the continuous need for resupply shipments from Earth. This requires cultivating algae, potatoes, leafy greens, effectively creating a sustainable artificial life cycle. The very first lunar colonists will essentially be agricultural engineers and expert maintenance technicians, living and working inside small, delicate mini-worlds of their own making. The Moon will also play a crucial and unique scientific role. It offers us a singular perspective on the universe. The far side of the Moon is permanently shielded by the lunar body from the constant, disruptive radio noise emanating from Earth. It is arguably the quietest location in the entire solar system, and, therefore, the ideal site for constructing enormous, low-frequency radio telescopes. These instruments could potentially detect faint radio signals from the extremely early universe that are impossible to observe from Earth, allowing us to peer back into the true cosmic dawn. Lunar science is not a peripheral activity. It is a powerful tool for exponentially expanding our knowledge base. Lunar colonization will not be a simple technological task, and psychology will play just as important a role as complex engineering. The crews must be capable of managing extreme isolation, the inevitable monotony of a gray, stark landscape, and the constant underlying sense of danger. International collaboration is absolutely vital for distributing the inherent risks and the staggering costs. This is precisely why the Artemis program is built upon a broad coalition of nations. This is not just a matter of global goodwill, it is a pragmatic necessity. Dividing the massive responsibilities, for example, Europe providing the habitation module, Japan providing cargo transfer systems, and Canada providing a crucial robotic arm, makes the task economically and logistically manageable. The successful establishment of a permanent lunar base, capable of autonomously producing fuel, oxygen, and water, provides us with the necessary confidence and the proven technology for the next major leap. The Moon is the definitive stepping stone that converts the idea of going to Mars from a dangerous, high-risk, one-way mission into a logistically viable expedition. Without the lunar refueling station, the cost and the sheer mass required to launch a mission directly to Mars are financially prohibitive. With the Moon secured as a resupply point, Mars suddenly becomes a much closer, more attainable objective. Thus, the return to the Moon is far more than an exercise in historical nostalgia or a mere space race competition. It is the proof of concept for multi-planetary life. It is the construction of the critical spaceport and the crucial service station that will allow space traffic not only to exist, but to truly thrive. It is the necessary investment in the critical infrastructure that will enable the cosmic economy to take off. Once the Moon becomes a place of permanent life and work, our view of the solar system will be changed forever. We will no longer be mere inhabitants of a single planet, but explorers residing at multiple, robust outposts. And with that monumental success secured, our gaze inevitably turns to the next and most challenging destination, the Red Planet. Chapter 4. Mars as humanity's first off-world planet. If the Moon serves as our intensive training ground, then Mars is the ultimate goal, the true test of fire, and the culmination of the biological imperative that compels us to disperse. Mars is not merely the next step, it is the first location outside of Earth where humanity has a real, tangible opportunity to establish a self-sustaining civilization, a genuine planetary home. When we eventually look at the first photographs of the Martian base, we will not be seeing a temporary research station, but the infancy of a new, distinct branch of humanity. Yet, between the vivid dream of a Martian city and its harsh reality stand challenges that can only be described as colossal, nearly biblical in scale. Overcoming these challenges will be the ultimate definition of who we are as a species. The daunting challenge of Mars begins with the logistics. We are discussing a long journey of between 6 to 9 months, depending on the orbital alignments, and a favorable launch window that opens up only once every 26 months. This is emphatically not a short round-trip mission. It is a commitment spanning several years. The cost, the time, and the enormous distance impose one fundamental, unavoidable rule. The Martian base must achieve self-sufficiency almost immediately upon landing. We cannot rely on regular, predictable shipments of spare parts, fresh food, or air from Earth. If we draw a historical comparison to the founding of the first colonies in the Americas, it is as if not a single resupply ship could be sent for the first 2 years. This powerfully underscores the critical importance of the in situ resource utilization (ISRU) technology we discussed for the Moon. On Mars, it is truly a matter of life or death. What are the major barriers that render Mars such a formidable challenge? We can synthesize them into 3 critical fronts: radiation, atmosphere, and distance logistics. First, radiation. Unlike Earth, Mars does not possess a strong, globally encompassing magnetic field. Furthermore, its atmosphere is incredibly tenuous, registering at barely 1% of the density of Earth's. This means the Martian surface is constantly bombarded by high-energy galactic cosmic radiation, GCR, and powerful solar energetic particles, SEP. Prolonged exposure on the surface or during the long voyage would drastically increase the risk of cancer and neurological damage. The solution here is not technological in the sense of a force field. It is simple and brutally physical. Put mass between the colonists and space. The initial settlement formats, therefore, will not be aesthetically pleasing glass domes overlooking beautiful canyons. They will be subsurface structures or habitats heavily covered by thick layers of Martian regolith. The established plan is to live primarily underground, utilizing natural lava tubes or actively excavating deep bunkers, and only venturing out for work in state-of-the-art pressurized suits. Pressurized habitats built on the surface will need to be covered by several meters of soil, effectively creating a kind of earthen igloo. Survival and protection are prioritized absolutely over scenic panoramic views. Second, the atmosphere. Although it is thin, the Martian atmosphere, which is composed of 95% carbon dioxide, CO2, is the critical raw material for both life support and the return voyage. This is where the magic of chemical engineering comes into play. The MOXIE experiment, which is already successfully operating aboard the Perseverance rover, has conclusively demonstrated that we can efficiently extract oxygen from the Martian CO2. This oxygen is not only vital for breathing, but, when effectively combined with hydrogen, extracted from the deep deposits of water ice known to be present beneath the Martian surface, it becomes the potent propellant required for the return journey to Earth. The goal of the very first crewed mission to Mars is not simply to step on the surface. It is to produce the return fuel before the human explorers even arrive. If the explorers have to carry the heavy return propellant with them from Earth, the mission becomes wildly inefficient and exponentially more dangerous. If they find and manufacture it entirely on Mars, the mission becomes logistically sound and viable. Third, landing logistics. Safely landing large, heavy spacecraft on Mars is extremely difficult and dangerous. The atmosphere is just thick enough to cause dangerous atmospheric heating, yet far too thin to fully slow down a heavy cargo vessel effectively. It is every engineer's worst nightmare. This is why landing vehicles like Starship are designed to utilize a strategic combination of aerodynamic braking, using their massive surface area as a heat shield, and powerful vertical propulsive braking. A permanent base requires safely landing dozens or even hundreds of these massive space trucks, each carrying tons of essential equipment. This volume of cargo and passenger traffic requires a massive, robust, and completely reusable landing infrastructure that currently exists nowhere else. Once these formidable initial challenges are overcome and the first brave crews are securely established, what will the formats of the first settlements actually look like? The first colonists will be pioneers of an unprecedented kind, engineer farmers. Their primary initial task will not be geological exploration, but the rapid construction of vital infrastructure. This will centrally include modular shelters, prefabricated pressurized modules thickly covered with locally sourced regolith, closed biodomes, pressurized greenhouses where all food is grown using hydroponic or aeroponic systems. These highly controlled, closed ecosystems will efficiently recycle all air and water, minimizing loss. Colonists will cultivate staples such as algae, potatoes, and perhaps protein-rich insects. Industrial-scale ISRU plants, robotic factories working 24 hours a day to extract water, produce breathable oxygen, and generate methane, fuel, from the atmospheric CO2. The overarching goal is for the settlement to reach the viability point, where the local production of resources demonstrably exceeds the local consumption, guaranteeing that, even if resupply from Earth were completely cut off, the colony could survive indefinitely. The production of fuel is not only necessary for the returning starships, it is the key to Martian mobility. The locally generated methane and oxygen will power long-range pressurized ground vehicles, enabling extensive exploration and large-scale mining operations far from the primary base. In the future, this fuel could even power the very first atmospheric flights on Mars. The concept of terraforming Mars, the idea of converting it into a blue and green twin of Earth, is popular in science fiction, but the reality is far more humble and perhaps impossible in the short term. Scientists estimate that the available amount of CO2 that can be efficiently released from Mars's regolith and polar ice is insufficient to create a dense atmosphere capable of retaining heat and protecting against harmful radiation. Moreover, the sun's magnetic field, the solar wind, would continue stripping away any newly generated atmosphere. Therefore, the realistic timeline does not involve dramatically changing the entire planet within the next millennium, but simply changing our immediate environment through small, self-contained, pressurized biospheres that effectively simulate Earth. The realistic timeline for true colonization looks something like this. Phase 1. 2020s, 2030s. Robotic precursors. Unmanned cargo ships loaded with essential equipment, habitat modules, small nuclear reactors, and, crucially, operational ISRU plants are sent. The absolute goal is for the robots to have produced sufficient return propellant for a crewed mission before the humans even arrive. Phase 2, 2030s, 2040s. First human steps. The very first crewed mission, a small handful of individuals. Their primary objective is not extensive exploration, but the activation of the base, the control of the full-scale ISRU plants, and the installation of permanent shelters. This mission duration is expected to be 18 months. Phase 3, 2040s, 2050s. The settlement. Successive crewed missions bring exponentially more colonists, construction equipment, and advanced 3D printers. The central goal is to reach total local self-sufficiency and establish a permanent, growing population. At this point, Mars ceases to be merely an outpost and officially begins to become a home. Phase 4, 2060s onward. Growth and specialization. The colony rapidly increases in population, perhaps reaching hundreds of people. Small industries are established, production of plastics, refined metals, electronic components. Martians, the first human beings born on another planet, begin to appear. Mars will be humanity's first grand experiment in how our species can successfully evolve in a radically different environment. Individuals born on Mars, experiencing 1/3 of Earth's gravity, will develop measurably different bodies, taller, leaner, and adapted to the lower pressure environment. Their culture, their psychology, and their entire worldview will be fundamentally distinct from those of Terrans. They will be, truly, the first definitive citizens of the cosmos. The challenge of Mars is the definitive challenge of our own species. It requires the absolute maximum of our innovation, our global collaboration, and our unwavering resilience. We are not seeking out a new planet because Earth is a failure, but precisely because we are a success. Growth is our coded nature, and the promise of Mars is that when the first child is born there, humanity will have secured a future not just of precarious survival, but of boundless expansion. Mars will be the nascent heart of humanity's first interstellar empire, a vibrant beacon of life in an otherwise still and silent solar system. Chapter 5. How will we live off-world? We have successfully established the why, necessity, the with what, rockets, and the where, the Moon and Mars. Now, we arrive at the most intimate and intriguing question, the how. What will it truly be like to awaken on the Moon, inside a gigantic spinning space cylinder, or deep beneath the Martian surface? Life beyond Earth will not merely be a continuation of terrestrial existence, it will be a profound metamorphosis. Our fundamental, absolute human needs, air, water, shelter, community, will certainly remain, but the architecture, the economy, and the entire psychology of life will be radically rewritten by the harsh yet fascinating laws of the cosmos. Off-world architecture is a discipline dictated strictly by survival and extreme efficiency. Forget any images of glass and steel skyscrapers. In space, form rigorously follows protection. The number one priority is complete shielding against deadly radiation and high-velocity micrometeorites, alongside the complex maintenance of internal atmospheric pressure. This imperative leads us to 3 primary models of habitation, all of which are radically different from anything we know on Earth. On the Moon and Mars, the design will be endogenous, that is to say, we will build with the planet itself. As previously mentioned, the first habitats will be prefabricated pressurized modules covered by dense layers of local regolith, creating protective earth mounds or stable igloos of soil. The most ambitious idea involves utilizing the natural lava tubes found extensively on both Mars and the Moon. These colossal underground caves, formed by ancient volcanic flows, offer perfect natural shielding against radiation and crucial thermal stability. Colonists would simply seal off and pressurize segments of these tubes, effectively creating sprawling underground tunnels capable of housing entire cities. Life would be fundamentally vertical and subterranean, with artificial sunlight carefully mimicking the necessary rhythms of the terrestrial day. Construction materials will be sourced exclusively from local mining. The regolith, melted using concentrated solar mirrors or microwave energy, will be transformed into high-strength ceramics, building bricks, and essential optical fibers. In low Earth orbit, LEO, and farther afield, the model will be self-generated, the gigantic O'Neill cylinders, which we will explore in detail later. These immense artificial structures, designed to rotate in order to simulate Earth's natural gravity, will not merely be homes, they will be complete, self-sustaining, and free-floating ecosystems. Here, architecture will be beautifully liberated from planetary constraints. We could have buildings that literally float, landscapes that curve gracefully back upon themselves, and gravity that can be precisely adjusted to the specific needs of the inhabitants. These gargantuan settlements will be the true temples of human engineering, miniature worlds with their own internal skies, their own manufactured atmosphere, and their own controlled weather cycles. The psychology and culture of life beyond Earth will face unparalleled challenges. Extreme isolation, constant confinement, and an absolute reliance on complex technology for every single breath create immense psychological stress. The first pioneering colonists will be elite individuals, meticulously selected for their emotional stability, their profound resourcefulness, and their ability to function as a team under extreme, sustained pressure. However, as the colonies grow and mature, entirely new social structures will inevitably emerge. How will democracy and legal jurisdiction actually function in a settlement of only 100 people, where a single critical mistake in the life support system could catastrophically kill the entire population? Discipline and absolute consensus will quickly become paramount societal values. New, distinct cultures will arise. Martian colonies, separated from Earth by many months of communication lag, will develop their own unique vernacular, their own core values, and, most likely, a strong sense of fiercely independent identity. The reduced gravity of Mars, 0.38 g, and the Moon, 0.16 g, will not only change the way we move, long, graceful leaps instead of walking, but it will also fundamentally alter long-term human biology. Individuals born in low-gravity environments will inevitably become a different species, Homo spaciensis, perfectly adapted to their unique new surroundings. Culture will center intensely on resource efficiency, the value of every molecule of oxygen and water, and a viewing of Earth as a distant, beautiful place, but no longer the undisputed center of everything. Terranism, a profound love for Earth, will emerge as a powerful philosophy, but it will fiercely compete with cosmism, the full adaptation to space. The engine that will drive this new life will not be philanthropy or exploration, it will be economics. A fledgling colony is inherently unsustainable if it only consumes. It must successfully produce something valuable for Earth, or for other surrounding space colonies. This is the crucial moment where the extraterrestrial economy is firmly established. What exactly will these burgeoning colonies produce and export? Propellant, Moon. As already emphasized, the single most important business of the Moon is the efficient production of oxygen and rocket propellant derived from water ice. The Moon will effectively export massive rocket energy to high Earth orbit and to deep space missions heading toward Mars. This will be the cosmic equivalent of interstate service stations. High-value materials, asteroids. Asteroids contain rare platinum group metals, iridium, osmium, platinum, which are exceedingly rare on the terrestrial surface, yet absolutely vital for modern electronics and industrial catalysis. A single platinum-rich asteroid could be worth trillions of dollars. Asteroid mining could potentially flood the Earth market with precious metals, which might collapse the jewelry economy but would revolutionize electronics, making them cheaper and far more abundant. Precision manufacturing, LEO. Microgravity offers a perfect, undisturbed manufacturing environment. Products that could be routinely exported from orbital stations include ultra-pure optical fibers. Manufactured without the distorting interference of gravity, these are far more efficient than any terrestrial fiber. Semiconductor crystals. Grown with a structural perfection impossible on Earth, these are crucial for the next generation of computing. Biopharmaceuticals and organs. Proteins and pharmaceutical products crystallize differently in microgravity, allowing for the production of significantly purer medicines. There is also the potential for experimenting with the 3D printing of human organs under low-gravity conditions. The nascent space economy will be built upon the comparative advantage of space. Space is inherently terrible for mass agriculture, at least initially, but it is exceptionally excellent for ultra-precision manufacturing and high-value resource mining. The rapid development of this complex economy will necessitate a system of interplanetary credits and entirely new legislation. Who exactly owns the asteroids? Who is responsible for regulating lunar commerce? The Artemis Accords, signed by dozens of nations, seek to establish a legal framework that permits private ownership and resource mining, proactively avoiding the destructive conflict that could easily arise from a cosmic Wild West. Humanity's first major legal battle may very well be over the resource rights to a critical ice deposit within a lunar crater. Life beyond Earth will certainly not be a regression to the Stone Age. It will be a decisive leap into a new age of engineering. Colonists will live in an environment where every single resource is invaluable, every single watt of energy is crucial, and every person is utterly indispensable. It will be a life characterized by extreme purpose, where the failure of one piece of equipment is not a mere inconvenience, but an existential threat to all. But within this crucible of extreme necessity, humanity will discover a new, profound level of ingenuity and deep community. The true, lasting legacy of these colonies will be the ultimate birth of a multiplanetary mindset. Future Earth inhabitants will look skyward and see a moon where their relatives actively work and a Mars where their children can be born. The sky will no longer be seen as a limit, but as a vast, open neighborhood. And once we have successfully established these necessary outposts, our ambition will naturally turn to the manipulation of entire worlds, the towering, ambitious dream of terraforming. Chapter 6: Terraforming, Where It Works and Where It Fails. If colonization is the difficult process of learning to live on a planet, terraforming is the audacious attempt to fundamentally convert that planet into a viable version of Earth. It is the most ambitious, most poetic, and, frankly, most challenging idea humanity has ever conceived. To radically modify the atmosphere, climate, and ecology of an entire world so that humans can ultimately walk upon its surface without a protective spacesuit, breathing the open air. It is a dream worthy of gods, or at the very least, a powerful Type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. But just like with many cosmic promises, the harsh reality of physics and geology imposes strict, non-negotiable limits on this spectacular dream. It is absolutely crucial to understand that not all planets are created equal. The potential for terraforming is heavily dependent on the geological advantage, or lack thereof, of each specific world. The primary target for terraforming, ever since the concept was first popularized, has been Mars. At first glance, Mars appears to be the ideal candidate. It undeniably has water, ice, and frozen carbon dioxide trapped in its polar caps and its regolith. The basic terraforming plan has always seemed deceptively simple: heat the planet up. If you could release sufficient II into the atmosphere, the planet would experience a powerful runaway greenhouse effect that would warm it up. This sustained heat would melt more subsurface ice, releasing even more II and water vapor, thereby creating a positive feedback cycle that would cause the planet to rapidly warm and reliably retain an atmosphere. Eventually, the ultimate hope is that liquid water would flow freely on the surface, resilient mosses and lichens could be planted, and the long march toward a truly habitable world would commence. However, modern, in-depth studies have painted a much more sobering picture. The fundamental limit to the terraforming of Mars is the total available gas. Research strongly suggests that the total amount of CO2 that can be efficiently extracted from Mars's regolith and polar ice is simply insufficient to generate the necessary atmospheric pressure required to maintain stable liquid water on the surface. Earth's atmospheric pressure is approximately 101 kilopascals, 101 kilopascals. For water to not instantly boil away, Mars would require a minimum of 6 kilopascals. The currently available gas on Mars would barely allow this threshold to be reached, and it certainly would not maintain it for very long. Furthermore, even if a substantial atmosphere were somehow created, the unrelenting solar wind would gradually strip it away due to the critical lack of a global magnetic field. So, what are the realistic limits and timelines for Mars? The comprehensive plan to heat the entire planet to make it habitable in the open air would likely require massive technology that we do not yet possess, such as gigantic orbital mirrors to effectively focus heat, or the massive importation of powerful greenhouse gases like perfluorocarbons from distant asteroids or Venus. This colossal process, if indeed feasible at all, would take thousands of years and require an energy investment comparable to that of a Type 1 civilization. Therefore, the current scientific consensus is that the complete terraforming of Mars is a very long-term dream, perhaps for our descendants tens of thousands of years from now. For 21st century humanity, pressurized domes and underground habitats remain the only viable reality. If Mars is difficult, Venus presents a case study in super difficulty. The planet is a literal hellscape of crushing pressure and searing temperature. Its atmosphere is 90 times denser than Earth's, a pressure that would instantly crush a modern submarine, and its surface temperature exceeds 460 degrees Celsius, which is easily hot enough to melt lead. The very first step of Venus terraforming would be to somehow get rid of that massive 2 atmosphere. One method proposed is to release genetically modified algae or bacteria into the upper atmosphere, where conditions are milder, for them to consume the 2 and release oxygen. However, this process would also consume thousands of years. Other concepts suggest the massive construction of a giant solar umbrella at the L1 point to permanently reduce the global temperature. Venus, unlike Mars, does have the advantage of near-Earth gravity and an internal magnetic field. But the sheer challenge of managing that extreme pressure and temperature makes colonization only remotely viable, perhaps through the establishment of floating cloud cities in the milder upper atmosphere rather than on the scorching surface. Venus is, for now, a purely theoretical terraforming concept. The necessity of confronting these harsh geological realities forces us to seriously consider more practical, immediate alternatives to large-scale planetary terraforming. If we cannot possibly change the planet, we must instead change the habitat. The most powerful and realistic concept for massive, sustainable human expansion is not on the surface of any planet, but in the emptiness of space itself. Orbital habitats, or O'Neill cylinders. These ingenious habitats, which will be explored in comprehensive detail in the next chapter, are the true solution for massive population growth off-world because they offer 3 critical advantages that no planet can reliably match. Artificial gravity. Through calculated rotation, perfect Earth-like gravity, 1G, can be simulated, completely eliminating the long-term health issues associated with low gravity, for example, bone and muscle wasting. Total climate control. The climate, atmosphere, internal geography, and even the cycle of day and night can be precisely designed and controlled. You are never at the mercy of defective planetary geology. Unlimited resource access. They will be constructed entirely from materials mined from the asteroid belt, offering an essentially infinite supply of metals, silicates, and volatiles necessary for continuous expansion. Instead of spending thousands of years and unimaginable energy trying to slightly change a flawed planet, we can utilize those same resources to construct an unlimited number of perfect, purpose-built mini-worlds in space. humanity's future on a grand scale is not about colonizing inherently flawed planets, but about building superior planets for ourselves. The dream of terraforming, though undeniably romantic and inspiring, must be placed into a realistic perspective. It is the final, ultimate goal, not the crucial first step. The path to an interstellar empire is not built by forcefully trying to make Mars like Earth, but by strategically leveraging cosmic resources to construct our true, adaptable home in orbit. This pragmatic approach leads us directly to the concept that truly represents humanity's demographic expansion. The real frontier is not the dry, red soil of Mars, but the immense, empty volume of space that patiently awaits to be filled with our creations. Chapter 7. The Gigantic Orbital Structures. If the Moon and Mars represent mere survival and adaptation to what nature reluctantly offers us, then orbital structures represent the unlimited expansion and architectural perfection that we ourselves can meticulously create. This is the expansive future where humanity ceases to be a renter on planets that are, in essence, imperfect for our long-term needs, and finally becomes the deliberate architect of its own worlds. Forget the claustrophobia and the inherent danger of Martian modules. Here, we speak of sprawling green spaces, vast manufactured skies, and a perfect gravity that we can efficiently switch on and off at will. This is the genuine, sustainable home for a civilization encompassing billions of people outside of Earth, the powerful culmination of civil engineering on a truly cosmic scale. The core concept for these massive orbital megastructures was first popularized by the visionary physicist Gerard K. O'Neill in the 1970s, and today these structures are universally known as O'Neill cylinders. The underlying idea is as simple as it is absolutely ingenious. Construct massive, immense cylinders in the vacuum of space, cause them to rotate at a precise, calculated speed, and allow the resulting centrifugal force to act as a reliable, simulated gravity. This is not a mere science fiction trick, it is a rigorous, proven concept of Newtonian physics. The rotational velocity is the absolute key. It must be slow enough to simulate a perfect, Earth-like surface gravity, 1g, without inducing vertigo or the harmful Coriolis effects that would be detrimental to the inhabitants. For instance, a cylinder measuring approximately 8 kilometers in diameter would need to rotate roughly once every 114 seconds. This single design element solves the greatest health problem of life in space, the long-term loss of bone and muscle mass, ensuring that people can be born, grow, and live with the same robust biology we possess on Earth. But what makes these habitats so breathtakingly astonishing is not just the artificial gravity, it is the breathtaking interior landscape. An O'Neill cylinder is not a dark pipe, it is a complete, closed valley. The inner surface of the cylinder is ingeniously divided into longitudinal strips. It alternates between 3 strips of land and 3 long strips of transparent windows, or skylights, made of gigantic, highly reflective panels. These panels are opened, closed, or finely adjusted to angle the natural sunlight directly into the cylinder's interior in a way that perfectly simulates the movement of the sun across the terrestrial sky. This creates a fully controlled day-night cycle, complete with defined sunrise and sunset, entirely eliminating the need for constant artificial illumination. The land sections would support their own complex ecosystems, running rivers, lush forests, rolling hills, vast agricultural zones, and even small internal lakes or seas. The geography could be meticulously designed to maximize both living space and scenic beauty. People could fly with artificial wings in the central, zero-gravity axis of the cylinder, where true weightlessness exists, or engage in high-impact sports on the simulated gravity surface. The O'Neill cylinder is the most famous design, but it is only one of many potentially viable models. Other geometries have been thoroughly optimized for different populations and purposes. Stanford Torus, a more compact ring-shaped design, typically about 1.6 kilometers in diameter, designed to comfortably house perhaps 10,000 people. It would be more manageable for the very first colonies and would serve as a perfect ring city for advanced research or high-precision manufacturing. Bernal spheres. More compact spherical structures, also rotational, which maintain an internal atmosphere. The rotation-induced gravity is primarily felt around the interior equator. Bernal spheres could be focused more on aquatic life or aquaculture, making them ideal for massive food production and biological research. Why should humanity expend the effort to construct these entire worlds in space, rather than simply terraforming an existing planet? The answer is overwhelmingly found in efficiency, scalability, and climatic sovereignty. Planets inherently come with major flaws: inadequate gravity, Mars, Moon, a toxic atmosphere, Venus, or a lack of immediately accessible, valuable materials on the surface. Orbital cylinders completely bypass all of these problems. Not only can you establish the precise gravity you desire, but you can also meticulously choose your location. The most energy-efficient locations to construct these megastructures are the Lagrange points, L4 and L5, within the Earth-Moon system. These are points of gravitational stability where the cylinders can maintain their position with minimal station-keeping energy consumption. This gives them easy access to both terrestrial resources, still costly, and the vast, abundant resources from the Moon and asteroids, which are the true, intended source of material. Expansion is not constrained by the fixed size of a planet or by the prohibitively high cost of launching materials from Earth. It is limited only by our engineering capability and the limitless availability of asteroids. If we require more living space for a continually growing population, we simply construct another cylinder. The expansion potential is geometric and essentially infinite. Engineering and resources of a mini-world. The massive construction of these structures requires an extraordinary level of technological mastery and a fundamental material source that absolutely cannot be Earth. Materials. Asteroid mining. The massive cylinders will require unimaginable quantities of aluminum, titanium, silicates, and, critically, ultra-high-strength steel and advanced composite materials. This material will not originate from Earth. The required infrastructure to build O'Neill cylinders is only truly unlocked by the extensive development of asteroid mining. Metallic M-type asteroids and carbonaceous C-type asteroids, rich in water and other volatiles, are pristine repositories of essential metals and elements. Autonomous mining robots would process the raw material in situ, and the refined output would then be transported to the Lagrange points, which will serve as colossal cosmic shipyards and assembly stations. The widespread use of large-scale 3D printing utilizing these extraterrestrial materials will significantly reduce waste and transportation costs. Atmosphere management. The greatest challenge, besides the sheer construction, is maintaining an Earth-like atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and oxygen, sealed within such a large, pressurized volume. The thickness of the cylinder walls must reliably withstand the constant force of the internal atmospheric pressure. Furthermore, the atmosphere must be constantly regenerated through its internal biosphere. This is the principle of a closed-loop life support system, CLSS, operating on a massive scale. The health of the plants, the cleanliness of the water, and the stability of the bacterial populations are just as important as the structural integrity of the steel. The failure of a single type of bacteria, or the proliferation of one pathogen, could be catastrophic for the entire closed ecosystem. Energy. Power would be supplied by gargantuan solar arrays completely enveloping the outer cylinder, capturing the sun's light without any atmospheric obstruction. This immense energy source not only powers the rotation, the interior lighting, and the life support systems, but also enables the electrolysis to separate water into hydrogen and oxygen for propulsion and all industrial processes. A civilization living in orbital cylinders is, by design, a civilization powered by almost unlimited solar energy. Life in the artificial worlds, a new society. Life within an O'Neill cylinder would be the most terrestrial form of life available outside of Earth, yet it would come with its own unique eccentricities and strictly enforced social rules. Architecture and urbanism. Cities would be built in terraces along the curved slopes of the interior. Ground transportation would be primarily pedestrian or light electric. The greatest, most spectacular feature would be the central cloud. Along the axis of rotation, gravity is zero. This center would be used extensively for recreation, zero-G sports, storage, and, potentially, the spaceport for incoming ships, creating a visually stunning, weightless urban core. Looking up and seeing the other side of your world curving overhead would be a profoundly transformative visual experience. Culture and philosophy. Individuals born in these cylinders, the orbitals, would inevitably develop a unique culture centered on ecological efficiency, sustainability, and intense engineering awareness. Their world is physically finite, and their survival depends entirely on the perfect collaborative functioning of the ecosystem. This would likely lead to highly regulated, perhaps technocratic societies with a profound reverence for systemic stability and engineering excellence. Their philosophy would be cosmic design. They are the intentional gardeners of their own purpose-built universe. Security. In such a delicate, highly artificial environment, the reliance on technology is absolute. The air recycling systems, the pressurization pumps, and the radiation monitoring equipment cannot fail. This could foster highly regulated, security-conscious societies where preventative maintenance and absolute redundancy are sacred, unyielding laws, far more important than individual freedoms that might inadvertently jeopardize the delicate ecosystem. Orbital structures represent the maturity of humanity as a spacefaring species. They are the logical, highly scalable answer to the fundamental question of how we can sustainably house billions of people without either destroying or perpetually struggling with imperfect planets. They place the destiny of our immediate living environment directly into our hands. This vision is precisely what makes the economy of cosmic resources so critically vital, because without the cheap, abundant raw materials from the moon and the asteroid belt, these massive giants simply cannot be built in sufficient numbers. They are the physical manifestation of the concept that civilization must expand toward abundance. Chapter 8. New Energy Sources and Resources from the Cosmos. If colonization is the ultimate destination, then cosmic energy and raw materials are the necessary fuel and steel. The expansion of humanity beyond Earth is, at its core, an economic problem that can only be successfully solved by a radical transformation of our resource system. We must cease digging within the Earth, which is a costly gravity well and a fragile ecosystem, and begin systematically harvesting the vast, pristine, floating resources of space. This chapter is not about fanciful science fiction. It is about the economy of abundance, where space truly becomes the ultimate warehouse of civilization. The single key to this monumental shift is asteroid mining. These celestial bodies, often dismissively regarded as mere debris, are, in reality, the most valuable raw material deposits in our entire solar system. Asteroids are classified into several categories, but two are fundamentally vital for the interplanetary economy we are building. C-type, carbonaceous asteroids, the cosmic water wells. These abundant asteroids are incredibly rich in volatile compounds, most notably water in the form of hydrous minerals and various carbon compounds. The water, once efficiently extracted via heating and refining, is the most critical resource. Its value lies not only in life support, drinking, growing food, radiation shielding, but because it is the ideal feedstock for rocket propellant, hydrogen and oxygen. By extracting water from an asteroid and converting it into fuel in space, we completely eliminate the need to launch it from Earth, or even from the Moon. This slashes the cost of interplanetary travel to a mere fraction of its current value. C-type asteroids become the orbital gas stations, allowing the fleet of spacecraft, from massive cargo transporters to the immense O'Neill cylinders, to refuel at key strategic routes. The most promising location to begin is with the near-Earth asteroids, NEAs, which are easier to reach than those in the main belt. M-type, metallic asteroids, the treasure trove of technology. These bodies are essentially the leftover cores of failed ancient protoplanets. They are composed of massive, unimaginable quantities of iron, nickel, cobalt, and, most crucially, platinum group metals, PGMs, such as platinum, iridium, rhodium, and osmium. The extreme scarcity of these metals on Earth drives their exorbitantly high prices and severely limits their use in vital modern technologies. For example, iridium is used in high-durability spark plugs, and rhodium is absolutely essential for industrial catalysis. A medium-sized M-type asteroid, perhaps only 1 kilometer in diameter, could contain PGMs with a value that significantly exceeds the current annual global gross domestic product, GDP. The immense impact of introducing such an abundance of high-quality metals into the global economy is difficult to overstate. If these materials were sent to Earth, the price of precious metals would plummet, fundamentally revolutionizing technology across the board. If they are used for in-space manufacturing, which is the most logical and efficient destination, they would provide the necessary structural mass to build hundreds of orbital megastructures without further depleting Earth. Asteroid mining is not merely an economic activity. It is the single act that permanently transforms terrestrial scarcity into cosmic abundance. The methods proposed for asteroid mining are as innovative as the idea itself. One concept involves the physical capture of smaller NEAs and their gentle deviation toward secure processing points, such as the Lagrange points, where fully autonomous robots would dismantle the asteroid. Another method involves using gigantic, durable bags or encapsulating wraps made of heat-resistant material that cover the asteroid entirely. Using focused solar mirrors, the asteroid is heated to efficiently vaporize the volatiles, which are then carefully collected. The remaining solids are refined using solar furnaces or chemical processes in microgravity, which drastically reduces contamination and increases the purity of the material. But raw material without sufficient energy is functionally useless. The second great transformation is space-based solar power, SBSP. Earth has a fundamental energy problem. The constant need for energy is challenged because the solar source is intermittent, night, clouds, and heavily filtered by the atmosphere. SBSP solves this by installing gigantic constellations of solar-paneled satellites in geostationary orbit, or medium Earth orbit, MEO. These orbital solar farms have an unbeatable advantage: 24/7 access to unfiltered sunlight. The harvested energy is converted into low-density microwaves, safe for life, similar to the radiation from a cell phone tower, but highly focused. and transmitted wirelessly to vast receiver stations on the terrestrial surface, known as rectennas, rectifying antennas. The benefits of SBSP are revolutionary and could be the decisive factor in halting runaway climate change. Uninterrupted power. Energy reaches the Earth constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, completely eliminating the problem of large-scale storage, batteries, that plagues terrestrial renewable energy. Massive scalability. A single large satellite could potentially generate gigawatts of power, enough to supply a major city. An entire constellation could effectively meet the energy needs of entire continents, ushering in an era of essentially unlimited energy. Flexible location. The rectennas on Earth can be constructed in remote regions or offshore, optimizing transmission efficiency without interfering with densely populated urban areas. The initial cost of SBSP is astronomical, which is precisely why its viability depends entirely on the robust, reusable launch infrastructure, Chapter 2, and in-space manufacturing, Chapter 7. The materials required to construct the vast surface area of the solar panels and the massive orbital transmission antennas must come from the Moon or the asteroids. This creates a crucial positive economic feedback loop. Asteroid mining provides the material that makes SBSP possible, and SBSP provides the energy that powers the mining operations and all in-space manufacturing. This necessary interconnection of resources and energy gives rise to the formation of the cosmic economy. This economy is founded on the principle that the most valuable resources are those that are expensive to move, mass, and expensive to store, energy. The interplanetary trade network will be established upon crucial value flows. Flow 1. Low-mass raw materials, PGMs, precious and rare metals from asteroids and the Moon flowing back to Earth, high value, low mass, and to the orbital shipyards for component manufacturing. Flow 2. Fuel, propellant. The flow of water and methane, oxygen, from carbonaceous asteroids to orbital refueling stations, Lagrange points, and lunar orbit. This is the logistical lubricant of the entire system. Flow 3. Energy, SBSP. The flow of energy in the form of microwaves streaming back to Earth, infinite value. Flow 4. High engineering goods. The flow of ultra-precision products, optical fibers, perfect microchips, manufactured in microgravity, flowing to terrestrial markets. The robust formation of this economy urgently requires space legislation. Who legally owns asteroid 43-3 Eros? Who regulates the price of cosmic platinum? The Artemis Accords, signed by numerous nations, and evolving space customary law are laying the foundations, promoting the right to extract and utilize resources, a vital step that successfully transforms the rhetoric of exploration into the concrete reality of commerce. The first asteroid mining companies will be the new East India companies, fundamentally redefining global wealth and power. The era of space resources is not merely an option, it is an evolutionary and economic obligation. By accessing this vast, untapped reservoir of energy and material, humanity can decisively break the chains of terrestrial scarcity, propelling an era of prosperity and sustainability both on Earth and throughout space. But for this economic network to function effectively, we require more than just service stations and factories. We need the critical infrastructure of the highway, interplanetary transportation. Chapter 9. The interplanetary transportation of the future. The massive cosmic economy we have meticulously designed, complete with asteroid mining operations, lunar fueling bases, and self-contained orbital worlds, is entirely useless without an efficient, reliable network of roads connecting all these crucial points. The heavy, expensive chemical rockets, such as those we predominantly utilize today, were the essential tools of initial exploration, but they absolutely cannot be the sustainable engine of commerce. For life off-world to become routine and widespread, interplanetary travel must fundamentally transform from a dangerous, once-in-a-lifetime feat into a predictable, cost-effective, and highly efficient logistical act. The future of transportation is not a single, spectacular type of vessel, but a complex, integrated network of specialized vehicles, each one precisely optimized for its specific task, the cosmic equivalent of heavy-lift cargo planes, high-speed rail, and routine passenger shuttles. The main technological hurdle that we must overcome is propulsive efficiency. Current chemical rockets are undeniably powerful, generating enormous thrust instantaneously, but they are inherently inefficient in terms of mass ratio. The majority of a chemical rocket's weight is fuel. This efficiency is scientifically measured by the concept of specific impulse, the amount of thrust generated per unit of propellant mass over time. The next generation of technologies seeks to develop thrusters that may not be as instantly powerful, but which can reliably operate for months or even years, achieving significantly higher velocities with only a minimal fraction of the fuel mass. It is the crucial difference between a 100-meter sprint and a grueling marathon. This is where the next generation of advanced thrusters enters the arena. 1. Ion and electric drives, the silent cargo trains. Ion engines, such as those already successfully utilized on probes like Dawn and Deep Space One, represent the long-distance cargo transport technology of the future. These engines do not rely on combustion. They utilize electricity, typically derived from expansive solar arrays, to ionize an inert gas, such as xenon or krypton, and then employ powerful electric fields to accelerate these charged ions to extremely high velocities. Their key advantage is a colossal specific impulse, which translates to their ability to generate measurable thrust for thousands of hours while consuming only a minute amount of propellant mass. However, their actual thrust is very low, the equivalent of holding up a sheet of paper. This renders them useless for lifting off a planetary surface, but it makes them absolutely perfect for the slow, relentless task of moving many tons of valuable cargo, mined asteroid metals, construction equipment, across the vastness of the solar system. Advanced ion engines, such as plasma or Hall thrusters, will become the freight trains of the solar system's economy. Slowly, but with uncompromising persistence, they will ferry raw materials from the main asteroid belt to the burgeoning orbital shipyards near Earth and the Moon. The efficiency of these systems is so high that it finally makes the movement of substantial mass from one gravitational point to another economically viable. The cost of transporting 1 ton of platinum from an asteroid to a Lagrange point, even if the journey takes 2 years, will be vastly lower than the prohibitive cost of extracting that same ton from Earth's deep gravity well. 2. Nuclear propulsion, the power of a miniature sun. To efficiently move large amounts of people and time-critical equipment on multi-month interplanetary journeys, such as the inevitable trip from Earth to Mars, we require high velocity without the compromise of chemical mass. This is where nuclear thermal propulsion, NTP, becomes an absolute necessity. In an NTP engine, a nuclear fission reactor does not primarily generate electricity. Instead, it superheats a liquid propellant, typically hydrogen, to extreme temperatures. The resulting superheated gas is then expelled through a massive nozzle, generating substantial thrust. The core advantage of NTP is that it provides a specific impulse that is approximately double that of the very best chemical rockets. This means the same rocket can carry significantly more cargo or reach Mars in half the time, perhaps in 3 or 4 months, instead of the current 6 to 9 month window. Cutting the transit time is absolutely crucial, not only for logistical reasons, but also for radiation protection, as the human crew will spend far less time exposed to the dangers of deep space cosmic rays. Fission reactors will not only propel the ship, but will also serve as the massive onboard power source and, following a successful landing, the primary power source for the Martian base. The development of NTP is a critical, high-priority objective for all space agencies focused on future colonization. 3. The Interplanetary Transport Network. The true transformative breakthrough will not be one specific vehicle type, but the systematic integration of an efficient transport network across the entire solar system, similar to how global shipping and freight lines operate today on Earth. Passenger ferries, Earth-Moon. These will be large, entirely reusable chemical rockets, like the Starship, that operate as high-frequency ferries between Earth and the Moon, transporting people, high-priority equipment, and the first waves of space tourists. Their efficiency relies entirely on rapid turnaround and complete reusability. Nuclear tugs and expedition ships, Mars and beyond. These will be the specialized NTP vehicles that manage the transit of human crews and time-sensitive cargo between the Moon and Mars. Their primary function will be to act as heavy-duty tugs and high-speed expedition vessels. Cargo convoys, asteroids. These will be automated ion or electric tugs operating in pre-programmed convoys, slowly moving either entire asteroids or refined processed cargo toward orbital assembly points. These vessels will be fully autonomous, managed by advanced artificial intelligence, AI, and will travel along the lowest energy routes, utilizing what are known as interplanetary transport networks, ITN. The ITN leverages gravitational instability points in the three-body problem to drastically minimize fuel consumption. It is a highly elegant way to sail the solar system using gravity, much like a clipper ship utilizes the wind. Automation and zero-failure logistics. The vast distances and the inherent communication latency, delays between Earth and Mars can be up to 40 minutes, make the total automation of cargo logistics an indispensable requirement. Autonomous cargo ships will be the absolute norm. These uncrewed vehicles will utilize advanced AI to correct trajectories, dock seamlessly with orbital stations, and manage complex refueling processes. This includes automated refueling bases, orbital stations primarily located at the Lagrange points and around the Moon that use lunar or asteroidal propellant to automatically refuel any incoming vessel. Docking, fuel transfer, and basic maintenance will be executed entirely by advanced robotic arms and dedicated service drones. Remote diagnostics. AI will constantly monitor every single component of the spacecraft, identifying potential failures long before they can occur. In deep space, predictive maintenance is the only viable safety option. The final challenge: cost and risk reduction. The ultimate objective of all this relentless technological development is the massive reduction of cost per kilogram to any specific destination. By making transport highly efficient, substantially faster, and operated using space-derived fuel, the marginal cost of a journey plummets dramatically. The cost of sending one person to the Moon could drop from hundreds of millions of dollars to just a few million. The cost of sending 1 ton of equipment to Mars would drop from billions of dollars to the hundreds of millions. This profound cost reduction is what decisively transforms mere exploration into large-scale colonization. It enables the necessary scale. But even more importantly, the increased speed provided by nuclear engines significantly reduces the radiation risk for human crews. A faster journey is an inherently safer journey. By constructing this robust interplanetary transport network, humanity successfully establishes the arteries of its cosmic civilization. Earth becomes the central political and cultural hub, the Moon, the reliable staging port and fueling station, Mars, the first core population center off-world, and the asteroids, the resource mines. This sophisticated infrastructure is the absolute promise that, within the next few decades, a trip to Mars could become as routine for engineers and pioneers as a challenging transatlantic voyage was in the 19th century. Chapter 10. The Next Frontier, Interstellar Flight. If the colonization of Mars is the critical dream of our current generation, and the construction of self-contained orbital worlds is the profound ambition of the next, then interstellar flight is the long-term, inevitable destiny of humanity, the final, ultimate act of our mandatory expansion. Leaving our solar system, the home that gave us life, and journeying to another star is the single most monumental engineering challenge imaginable, a quantum leap that makes the colonization of Mars seem comparable to a simple camping trip. This unparalleled goal forces us to directly confront the fundamental laws of physics, primarily the immutable speed of light and the incomprehensible vastness of the cosmic void. Interstellar distances are simply inhumane. The closest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is located approximately 4.24 light-years away. 1 light-year is roughly 9.46 trillion kilometers. Even a journey undertaken at the fastest speeds ever achieved by our current probes, such as Voyager 1, which travels at about 17 kilometers per second, would take well over 70,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. This sheer time frame, which exceeds the entire recorded history of human civilization, underscores the fact that interstellar travel cannot be achieved with chemical rockets or ion engines. It demands entirely new propulsion concepts that currently exist only on the drawing boards and within advanced physics laboratories. The central challenge is achieving a significant fraction of the speed of light, known in physics as the beta fraction. For a journey to be truly viable within the span of a human lifetime, say 40 to 50 years of transit, the spacecraft would need to attain, at minimum, 10% of the speed of light, 0.1 c. At that enormous velocity, the energy required to move even a small mass is astronomical, governed by Einstein's famous mass-energy equivalence equation. We urgently require methods that can reliably generate extreme, constant thrust for decades on end. This is where the theoretical propulsion concepts of the 21st and 22nd centuries enter the discussion. 1. Nuclear Pulse Propulsion, Project Orion. Project Orion, conceived aggressively in the 1950s and 1960s, is arguably the most fully tested concept for ultra-fast propulsion. Its idea is brutal in its elegant simplicity. Deploy a continuous series of controlled nuclear explosions directly behind the spacecraft. Each deliberate explosion would propel a massive shock absorber plate, the pusher plate, that would be connected to the rest of the ship via giant, complex shock absorbers. Although Orion was initially conceived for rapid transport within the solar system, it could theoretically reach much greater speeds if scaled up to a gigantic size, utilizing thousands or even tens of thousands of nuclear bombs. The advantage is the tremendous specific impulse it can provide, far exceeding both chemical and nuclear thermal propulsion. An interstellar Orion would require an unbelievably massive vessel just to transport the necessary nuclear arsenal for the decades-long impulse. The attendant challenges are immense: extreme radiation exposure, the absolute need for a nearly indestructible shock absorption system, and, of course, the profound political and ethical implications of launching thousands of nuclear devices into space. Nevertheless, it remains one of the few technologies that, using current physics, could theoretically set us on a course for another star within a viable time frame, although it is ethically controversial. 2. The Laser Sail, Project Starshot. This concept has recently gained immense traction thanks to the groundbreaking Breakthrough Starshot initiative. The core idea is completely different. The spacecraft itself is minute, a nanoscope-sized chip, only a few grams, attached to a light sail spanning a few square meters. Instead of carrying any propellant, the propulsion comes from a massive external energy source. A gigantic array of ground-based or lunar-based lasers would focus their energy onto the nanosonde's sail. The sheer momentum impulse from the light, photons, would push the sail to extreme velocities. The Starshot plan aims to reach 20% of the speed of light, 0.2 c. At this blistering speed, the journey to Proxima Centauri would take only about 20 years. The challenges are equally daunting. The laser array. It would require a total power output of tens of gigawatts, the energetic equivalent of an entire nation's power production, focused with microscopic precision for several sustained minutes. The sail. It must be incredibly reflective, exquisitely lightweight, and capable of withstanding the tremendous heat and pressure of the focused laser beam without instantly disintegrating. Impact with the interstellar medium. Even a single tiny grain of cosmic dust striking the probe at 0.2 c would impact with the energy of a small atomic bomb, destroying the probe instantly. The nanosonde must be extremely resilient, and the mission would likely require the launch of millions of these probes to guarantee that a few manage to survive. This concept represents the fastest viable path, but only for robots. It is not viable for transporting human beings, due to the massive scale of human-rated mass required, which is too great to be efficiently accelerated by light alone. 3. The Bussard ramjet, hydrogen fusion. This theoretical concept is firmly situated within the realm of future mega-infrastructure. The Bussard ramjet is a theoretical fusion-based engine that would ingeniously solve the propellant problem. Rather than carrying fuel, the ship uses a gigantic magnetic field, a funnel, thousands of kilometers in diameter, to scoop up the sparse hydrogen atoms scattered throughout the vast interstellar medium. This captured hydrogen would then be used as fuel in an onboard nuclear fusion reactor. This reactor would generate an immense amount of energy and continuous thrust, allowing the ship to accelerate constantly. If proven viable, the Bussard ramjet could, theoretically, reach a high fraction of the speed of light, perhaps even 50% or more. However, the complex physics of controlled fusion and the ability to generate and maintain a magnetic field on the necessary scale to effectively vacuum hydrogen from the near vacuum of space are challenges that far exceed our current technological capabilities. It remains a dream that requires us to first definitively master fusion energy on Earth. 4. Generational and sleep ships, star arcs. Given that relativistic speeds, close to the speed of light, may remain firmly out of our grasp for centuries, the most feasible solution for human transport is the concept of the generational ship, star arc, or the sleep ship, hibernation pods. Generational ship. The vessel travels at sub-maximal speeds, perhaps 0.001 c or 0.1% of the speed of light, over a transit time spanning hundreds or even thousands of years. The ship must be a fully closed ecosystem, a self-propelled O'Neill cylinder, where multiple generations would be born, live, and eventually die aboard. The great-grandchildren of the original crew would be the ones to finally land on the target planet. The fundamental challenge is sociological and biological. How to reliably maintain motivation, technology, and cultural knowledge over 1,000 years of strict confinement, and how to prevent intergenerational conflict or cultural collapse. Sleep ship. The human crew enters a state of suspended animation, hibernation or cryogenics, for the majority of the long voyage, which significantly reduces resource consumption and the psychological impact of isolation. Only the ship's advanced AI would be required to maintain the vessel's operations. The challenge here is the medical technology required to safely induce and reliably reverse long-term hibernation or cryogenics without causing cellular or brain damage. The horizon of viability and target selection. Interstellar flight is the single largest infrastructure project in history, a goal spanning thousands of years. Experts believe that the first robotic probe mission to a nearby star, utilizing laser sail technology, is feasible within the next 100 to 200 years. The first actual human voyage will require a total mastery of fusion and closed-loop ecosystem engineering that could take us between 500 and 1,000 years to fully achieve. What would be the first, highly scrutinized destination? Proxima Centauri. It is the closest star, 4.24 light-years, and hosts a known rocky planet, Proxima Centauri b, within its habitable zone. Its proximity makes it the obvious primary target. Barnard's star, a red dwarf located 5.96 light-years away. Tau Ceti, a star similar to our own Sun, 12 light-years away, and a popular target due to its potential for hosting Earth-like exoplanets. The journey to the stars is humanity's ultimate act of faith and ambition. It is the guaranteed way our civilization ensures that human life, consciousness, and ambition will not be extinguished by the eventual fate of our Sun or by any unforeseen cataclysm. It is the profound destiny of truly becoming a cosmic species, carrying the vital light of life to silent, waiting worlds. Chapter 11. Contact, Loneliness, and the Probability of Life. Having carefully traced the trajectory of humanity from the moon to the distant stars, we now confront the single most fundamental and philosophical question of our existence in the cosmos. Are we alone? The cosmic expansion of humanity is not solely an endeavor of engineering and economics. It is an active, profound search across the immense universe to ultimately find a definitive answer to this enigma. We gaze upward into the night sky, populated by untold billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, and sheer statistical logic suggests that it is overwhelmingly improbable that life, as we currently know it or in some form we cannot yet imagine, has not arisen across a myriad of other worlds. Yet, within the vast, deep silence that envelops us, the hard evidence of another advanced civilization having left a perceptible imprint is, thus far, absolute zero. This profound silence is the Fermi paradox at its most acute, and its eventual resolution will define our place, our loneliness, and our ultimate destiny in the universe. The scientific estimation of the probability of intelligent life is articulated through the Drake equation. Formulated by the brilliant astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, this formula is not intended as a precise calculator of civilizations, but rather as an essential conceptual framework designed to force us to confront the crucial variables at play. The equation meticulously breaks down the probability of communicative life into a complex series of 7 multiplicative factors: the rate of formation of suitable stars in our galaxy, the fraction of those stars that possess planetary systems, the average number of planets within those systems that are potentially habitable, the fraction of those habitable planets where life actually arises, abiogenesis, the fraction of planets where life evolves to intelligence, the fraction of intelligent civilizations that develop the requisite technology to communicate, and finally, the average span of time such civilizations remain detectable before they successfully migrate, self-destruct, or simply become extinct. The immense uncertainty surrounding the last 4 factors, especially the fraction of life that achieves intelligence and the detectable lifespan of the civilization, has generated estimates that wildly range from billions of civilizations in the Milky Way to, quite literally, a single one, ours. This exceptionally wide range of possible results powerfully underscores the profound fragility of the entire chain of probabilities that culminates in technological intelligence. The Fermi paradox, the stark discrepancy between the high theoretical probability and the total absence of hard evidence of life, becomes even more acute when we consider the established galactic chronology. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is billions of years old. If a single intelligent civilization arose and decided to expand, even at modest speeds, far below the speed of light, it should have already colonized, or at least dispatched self-replicating probes throughout the entire galaxy within a period of only a few million years. The current lack of detectable, massive engineering structures, such as Dyson spheres, theoretical megastructures designed to completely encapsulate a star and capture all of its energy output, which would be highly detectable even across vast distances, or the total absence of deliberate radio signals, absolutely requires that the explanation for this silence be as monumental and profound as the question itself. The potential explanations for this profound cosmic silence fall into three broad families of hypotheses, each carrying deep existential implications for the ultimate future of humanity. 1. The rare earth or great filter hypotheses. This family of hypotheses posits that intelligent life is, in fact, exceptionally rare because at some critical juncture in the evolutionary timeline, there exists a great filter, a developmental or destructive bottleneck so overwhelmingly improbable or catastrophic that the vast majority of planets, or the vast majority of species, never successfully overcome it. The early filter. We are the first. This hypothesis maintains that the ultra-improbable event occurred in the distant past, long before the emergence of humankind. Candidate stages for this filter include abiogenesis, the spontaneous transition from inorganic chemistry to functioning life, the critical evolutionary step from prokaryotic cells to much more complex eukaryotic cells, or the appearance of true multicellularity. If complex biology itself is the great filter, then we are among the very first advanced species in the galaxy. This implies that the path toward the stars is relatively open for us, and that humanity's future is potentially unlimited, since the most difficult evolutionary barriers have already been successfully surpassed. The late filter. We are doomed. This is by far the most somber hypothesis. It argues that complex life and even intelligence is common throughout the galaxy. However, the filter relentlessly awaits us in the future. This suggests that any civilization that reaches a level of technological development sufficient to master fission, fusion, or advanced artificial intelligence inevitably destroys itself before successfully achieving true interstellar expansion. Probable causes include a global nuclear war, an irreversible climate catastrophe induced by the inability to manage planetary energy usage, the creation of an uncontrollable, malevolent super AI, or the catastrophic, irreversible depletion of essential planetary resources. If the late filter is true, our very multiplanetary expansion, the central theme of this narrative, is not an extravagance, but a desperate, necessary attempt to diversify the species to avoid imminent, single-point extinction, thereby creating a civilizational redundancy. Every time we examine the history of our own war technology, we are viewing the acute symptoms of the universal disease that might well be the great filter. 2. Sociological and behavioral hypotheses. This family of hypotheses argues that advanced civilizations do exist, but that they either deliberately choose not to, or are unable to, communicate with us. The dark forest hypothesis. This chilling theory, drawn from modern science fiction, suggests that the universe is an exceptionally hostile and dangerous environment. Any civilization that recklessly reveals its existence to the cosmos instantly becomes a prime target for annihilation by other civilizations that prioritize survival through the swift, preventative elimination of any potential competitor. Under this universal rule, the galactic silence is not an absence of life, but a universal, strategic imperative for survival. The heavens are filled with silent hunters, and any civilization that emits a powerful radio signal is committing cosmic suicide. Our own vigorous expansion with powerful radio signals makes us a potential target. The zoo hypothesis. This theory maintains that advanced civilizations are fully aware of us, but have collectively agreed not to interfere in our development. We are effectively considered a nature preserve or an uncontacted planet until we successfully reach a certain defined cultural, ethical, or technological threshold, perhaps achieving political unification or developing the capacity for stable interstellar travel without self-destructing. Essentially, they are observing us closely, allowing us to evolve organically and naturally. This hypothesis is somewhat humbling, but also inherently optimistic, as it means we are definitively not alone. The transcendence hypothesis. This argument posits that advanced civilizations, upon reaching their peak technological development, transcend the very need for material biology, migrating entirely into vast virtual reality simulations or into pure, powerful superintelligence networks. They have completely ceased interacting with the physical world of matter and energy at the detectable scale that we can measure. Their structures are not visible Dyson spheres, but rather complex, abstract computations, or the subtle manipulation of the structure of space-time at a level we cannot yet comprehend. 3. Local evidence, the biochemical outlook. While concrete contact with an advanced civilization remains theoretical, the intensive search for simple life within our own solar system has yielded surprisingly hopeful results. We have definitively discovered that planets within the habitable zone, where stable liquid water can exist, are common throughout the galaxy. Furthermore, the search for life has increasingly focused on the frozen moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Europa, Jupiter's moon, it possesses a vast, deep, salty ocean beneath a thick crust of ice. It is widely believed that the powerful gravitational tidal forces from Jupiter effectively heat Europa's core, permitting the existence of hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, environments that on Earth host complete, complex ecosystems without requiring sunlight. This makes Europa the single best local candidate for extant microbial life. Enceladus, Saturn's moon. It also definitively possesses a subsurface ocean and, crucially, features dramatic geysers that expel water vapor and complex organic molecules into space, allowing probes, like Cassini, to directly sample the ocean's chemical composition without the need for difficult ice drilling. These remarkable discoveries strongly suggest that abiogenesis, the initial emergence of life, might not actually be the great filter, that simple life, or even complex marine life forms, could be a common phenomenon throughout the universe. The true rarity might lie solely in the capacity to evolve the intelligence, the necessary technology, and the stability required to successfully become a multiplanetary species. Humanity's place in this cosmic vastness is one of profound operational loneliness, mixed with an immense, unprecedented responsibility. If we are indeed the first, or if we are the only survivors of the great filter thus far, the entire burden of carrying life, consciousness, and the potential for civilization into the universe rests entirely on our shoulders. Our cosmic expansion is not merely a search for resources or an escape from risk. It is a cosmic mandate to ensure that the flame of consciousness, which required billions of years to ignite, is never allowed to be extinguished. The silence of the universe must not paralyze us. It must instead powerfully motivate us. If there is truly no one else building colossal orbital cities or traveling between the stars, then it becomes our supreme historical obligation to be the very first. Chapter 12. Humanity's Long-Term Perspective. Having successfully conquered the Moon, established a permanent beachhead on Mars, and designed perfect worlds in orbit, we arrive at the conclusion of our vision. The very long-term perspective, the ultimate destiny of humanity across the next 10,000 years, 100,000 years, and beyond. This final chapter transcends engineering and economics to delve into cosmic biology, galactic sociology, and the true limits of our potential growth. The multi-planetary civilization we are meticulously building is not an end in itself, but the necessary next step in the evolution of our species, a step that forces us to finally confront the physical limits of our own solar system and, ultimately, the sheer immensity of the galaxy. Continuous survival and unyielding growth are the only two laws that will govern this expansive future. The central concept for this long-term perspective is the Kardashev scale, a classification system proposed by the Russian astrophysicist Nikolai Kardashev. This scale measures a civilization's level of technological advancement by the sheer amount of energy it is capable of successfully utilizing. A Type 1 civilization utilizes all the energy available on its home planet, the solar energy incident on Earth, which we will eventually dominate with SBSP and global infrastructure. The transition from a Type 0 species, current humanity, to Type 1 is the realistic goal for the next few centuries. A Type 2 civilization utilizes all the total energy available from its mother star. This could only be achieved through massive engineering structures, such as the construction of Dyson spheres, theoretical megastructures that completely encapsulate a star or surround it with giant rings to capture all of its energy output. The transition to Type 2, a fully functional solar system civilization, is the powerful promise of the next few millennia. Finally, a Type 3 civilization utilizes all the energy available from its entire galaxy, controlling billions of stars. True, unyielding growth does not halt at Mars. It stops only when we have fully mastered all the resources and energy of our stellar neighborhood. But this physical expansion has profound biological implications that will radically redefine what it means to be human. The future of humanity will not be unified, it will be radically diverse. As the population grows on the Moon, where gravity is only 1/6 of Earth's, Mars, with 1/3 of Earth's gravity, and the O'Neill cylinders, with perfectly controlled 1g, new branches of the human species will inevitably emerge. People born and raised in the low-gravity lunar and Martian environments will necessarily develop different bodies, taller, more slender, with lighter bone structures, and physically adapted to the low pressure and increased radiation. The selection pressure from microgravity and radiation will lead natural selection to favor profoundly different traits. Terrans will remain the original archetype, but they will compete culturally and perhaps biologically with the Lunars and the Martians, the Homo spatiensis. Those born within the O'Neill cylinders, with their perfect gravity and controlled climate, might well become the new aristocracy, the perfect inheritors of terrestrial biology, while the inhabitants of low-gravity planets will evolve into rugged pioneers, perhaps even necessitating targeted genetic or cybernetic modifications to truly thrive in their harsh home worlds. This biological differentiation, powerfully driven by diverse gravitational environments and the intense pressure of cosmic radiation, means that humanity is not just expanding in space, it is diversifying evolutionarily into multiple distinct species or subspecies. The concept of a unified human race will be superseded by a family of human species, dispersed throughout the solar system, and eventually among the stars. This profound biological and cultural divergence amplified by centuries of isolation in different worlds with distinct survival priorities, will be the central engine of cosmic sociology. The colonies will not merely be different, they will be independent. Distance and communication lag will dictate that each major outpost develops its own unique government, economy, and core values without the constant oversight of Earth. Trade wars, conflicts over asteroid mining rights, or even deep ideological disputes between the purely biological civilization of Earth and the cybernetic civilization of the orbital structures will be the new, inevitable conflicts of a solar empire. As humanity successfully masters its home stellar system and achieves Type II civilization status, the focus will inevitably shift to the final challenge: expansion beyond our Sun. Interstellar travel, while technically feasible for robotic probes within the next 2 centuries, will require generational ships, or sleep ships for human transport, involving long transit times spanning hundreds or even thousands of years. The ultimate purpose of these arc ships is to reliably carry life, knowledge, and consciousness to nearby stellar systems such as Proxima Centauri, Barnard's Star, or Tau Ceti. This expansion will not be an old-style conquest, but a deliberate seeding and diversification. Humanity will transform into a gardener species, or sower, carrying closed ecosystems and the sheer potential for life to silent worlds, fundamentally transforming the galaxy through the dispersion of consciousness. This process will transform the Type II civilization into a full-fledged Type III civilization, whose energy source is no longer limited to a single star, but extends across an entire galaxy, mastering the energy output of billions of suns. The true, ultimate limits of this continuous growth are difficult for us to conceive, but they are fundamentally based on the physics of information. The speed of light imposes a strict limitation on both communication and travel, which means that a galactic empire can never be governed from a single point. Interstellar colonies will necessarily be autonomous and evolve independently. Future civilizations might seek not only material resources, but also the absolute control of information and computation, creating vast supercomputers that utilize entire stars or black holes as processing components, transforming space into a massive data medium. The relentless pursuit of efficiency and longevity may lead to the transcendence of biology. A civilization with unlimited energy and molecular manufacturing capability, nanotechnology, could overcome biological aging, extending human lifespan to centuries or even millennia. At that definitive point, the need to migrate from the biological body to synthetic, digital, or purely information-based life forms could become the next great evolutionary leap, allowing consciousness to potentially move at the speed of light across communication networks, freeing itself from the speed limitation of the physical body and the fragility of biological form. Humanity could, ultimately, become a post-biological civilization, inhabiting both physical bodies on Mars and cylinders, and vast simulations or information networks across the entire cosmos. The final destination is transcendence. The ultimate destiny of humanity is twofold. First, to ensure the unconditional survival of consciousness, guaranteeing that regardless of terrestrial or cosmic cataclysms, such as the inevitable death of our Sun 5 billion years from now, or the threats posed by the Fermi paradox, life continues to burn brightly. Second, to fulfill the potential of consciousness by expanding the knowledge, complexity, and beauty of life throughout the galaxy. Cosmic expansion is not the end of our history, it is the starting point for the true and eternal evolution of being. The construction of a single outpost on the Moon is, in this immense context, the first, small, yet indispensable step toward the conquest of eternity and the immortality of the species. The cosmos awaits.